Welcome to tonight's West Cannon Valley Board of Education meeting. Could you please stand for the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Mr. Marco, we need to do your oath.
I didn't bring my glasses tonight. No. We set?
Yep, you're good.
I, Carson Marco, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New York, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of the Board of Education member for the West Cannon Valley Central School District, according to the best of my ability.
Okay, could we hear from our administrators? Mrs. Holmes?
I don't have too much. Summer program went great. We had great attendance. They loved the swim that we added. The last day they had a fun day. They got to go swimming, go out on the playground. We gave them some ice cream. Heard all great things about it, about the teachers. Our kindergarten registration's up to 41, so that's really good news. And our teachers have been working all summer with Elisa, who's the person from the CNY Dyslexia Center that's working on the Orton Gillingham with the 5 teachers that are becoming certified. And then Tanya Schnabel's been here. She was here for 3 days working with all the different grade levels. They were working on the units together for the ELA and finishing up the curriculum maps. And we're moving on to the item analysis for the state assessments. And that's really all I have for tonight, unless you have any questions. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Broadbent?
So I don't have a lot this month, but there's one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit once I get through some of these things. 7th grade and 8th grade orientation was Thursday night. We had all but 15 students from the 7th and 8th grade showed up. Played kickball for about an hour before. Came in at assembly, kids picked up their Chromebooks. 9th through 12th will get their Chromebooks when they come in the first day in the morning there. Summer school finished up in the Regents. Kids did fairly well. We had a few that had to retake the courses. We've been looking at our state assessment scores, placing students in AIS for the last couple of weeks. So we're just focusing on that. Student schedules all went out on Thursday, so students had those as well. The one thing I wanted to bring up to you is through our SEP plan and just student surveys, students had mentioned that they would like to be able to wear baseball caps in school. So I checked with other districts. Many districts in the area allow baseball caps. They do not allow hoods. And I spoke to a lot of the teachers who feel it may be a good move for us. So that's something I wanted you to think about, if that's something you'd like to do here in the high school.
So I just want to add in just a little bit. So as part of, as Mr. Broadbent said, as part of our plans, we're required to survey the students, get their thoughts on school climate, things that they think they would like to see happen at school, and things that, and so forth. There's a lot of different things. Well, one of the things, as Mr. Broadbent mentioned, is they said, when they go to Herkimer Bowl season, they go down to other schools, things like that, and their friends in other schools, get to wear baseball caps to school and things like that. We have not done that here. It's always been kind of your hats are off as soon as you walk in the building. So there's certainly that piece of it, but Mr. Broadbent came to see me about it. We talked a little bit about it, and I said, well, it's something that would be a change here. Just to kind of hear the board's thoughts on that, because it's something that would be, I don't want to make it sound like it's this big, huge thing, but it is a change. So I thought it was something in his administrative report tonight that we could bring up, and if anybody had some initial thoughts at least on it tonight, and if we wanted to discuss it further, we could, at a future meeting, but I wanted to at least get that out there tonight. Does anybody have any initial reaction to that? Nobody's,
I
I mean,
haven't heard of that,
what's that?
wearing hats in the building, I mean,
Is it something, I mean, it's sort of a personal, I mean, I understood that I would say over time, that's, you know, kind of a thing historically that's been sort of a respect thing. You take your hat off when you come into the building.
Say, out of respect, you take your hat off.
Yeah, when you come into the building, yep. So that's really, I think, the reason, probably way before I was born, that was
oh
in
yeah,
there.
it's been on forever.
You know what I mean? So, you know, that's there, and it's, you know, there's certain value in that. On the same token, you know, some things change over time, so you know, if, you know, the opinions of one before may not be the opinion today of everybody. Obviously, the kids wouldn't have put that into their survey if they didn't want to at least look into it, in Mr. Broadbent's survey that he has to give. So, I don't know, you know, it's a,
What would you do for the girls that don't wear ball caps? Is there a list of other things they put?
I mean, they
I'm
can,
gonna call it a beanie, but I don't know what them girls.
yeah, they
put
can
that's
wear a
floppy in the
beanie
back.
or whatever is fine. I mean, ultimately, you mean like kind of a winter hat or
Yeah,
like a
and
little
it hangs
bonnet
down in the
or-
back.
yeah. So yeah, anything that would be appropriate as far as, you know, we're not gonna allow certain hats with certain images, and the same with the t-shirt, you know, images that wouldn't be allowed on a hat, would be the same that wouldn't be allowed on a t-shirt. But we have a lot of kids, so there's a lot of reasons, what I've found since I started being an administrator and a teacher, why kids wear hats. Some kids wear hats because their hair is just not the way they want it to be. Might not be able to get a haircut as often as somebody else. They may be rushing in the morning, so they don't have time or to shower or do their hair. You know, so those are some things that I've come across, and I've, even as administrator at Utica, I had kids come in and willing to do detentions if I allowed them just to wear their hat because they weren't gonna be able to get a haircut for a week. So, you know, our kids struggle a lot with like just their social image and stuff like that and how others view them. So something like a hat might be something to make them feel just a little bit more comfortable in school. And, you know, the teacher that I spoke to, you know, they don't feel disrespect, like as, you know, the idea of traditionally you take it off to be respectful. I don't know of anybody here who, as a teacher that I spoke to, that feels it to be a disrespectful act. So, you know, a lot of schools are going in that direction. BOCES, our kids show up here, they have to take their hat off, they get on the bus, they go to BOCES, they wear their hat all day, they come back for 8th period, they gotta take their hat off. So that's kind of the,
it's kind of
The reasoning
interesting,
for
but
it,
that's
it's
what
just
came up in the
different views.
survey of something they wanted. I don't know, it's just, you know, I've never really, it's just kind of been a thing, I've never really had to discuss it. You know, you talk to the kids about taking their hats off throughout the day. You know, it's a management thing too, but, you know, it's just kind of an interesting topic.
I mean, I could serve.
I don't think we jump on too many different things, but, you know, I just, before we considered that, you know, I just, you know, kind of wanted to get others' thoughts. I mean, this is, you know, part of the overall school and things we want.
I mean, I could
done in
survey
terms
the
of that.
parents and get you some data for the next meeting, if that's, you know, how they feel.
Have you had parent calls?
I've had parents who I've spoke to about taking students' hats, who don't really understand what the big deal is with students wearing hats. And I tell them, you know, traditionally, you know, it's a thing of respect, it's a school policy. I mean, that's how I deal with it. I take hats, I take a lot of hats.
Do you think it'll be a problem, like, if some kids wanna wear a hood and then you tell them no hoods, but it's okay to wear a hat?
No, so the difference between a hat and a hood is, hood you can cover headphones and earbuds and stuff like that.
Conceal face a little bit.
Conceal
more than
faces
that.
a lot more, you know, zip them up tight. I think they would be happy that they got something. I mean, something they asked for. You know, we do these surveys for these kids, and we ask them what they think, what they want, how they feel, and that could be something that they feel like they gotta win, that we're actually listening to them, and it's something that we could give them, and they can feel like they're being part of the decision making here. So I mean, that's another reason.
I mean, they go to like indoor events and other men coming from the community are wearing hats, so probably as to a kid. Like
Yeah, you go to a basketball game, you're wearing a hat. If
You know,
you're
you
coming
know,
to a
the
concert, you
adults
wear
are
a
wearing
hat.
hats.
Their parents wear hats. Their parents aren't taking hats off when they come in here.
Other schools doing this?
Yeah,
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 It's the first I heard of it, but I mean, it-
maybe I should get up in the
There-
21st century.
there's some schools that.
CVA.
There's some schools that have, never had that policy, like, you know, what I mean, they've always, it's a non-issue in those schools, because they've always.
What was the reasoning for,
I don't know, it was kinda interesting that they said that in the survey.
how many said it?
I don't know, Mr. Bob,
So the thing with this, it was an interview process. So I get the results, they're not tallying, it's focus groups. That our consultants come in with a group of kids, it might be groups of 25 and another group of 25, group of 30. And the idea is that it's semi-confidential. So they just bring me all the data, not numbers necessarily, but here's what the kids said in 8th grade, here's the kids said in 7th grade, here's the kids what they said in 9th through 12th grade. So they give me that data and I use that. You know, some of it's about the food, some of it's about hats. Other things is they wanted more group work. I mean, it's a list of, I think you may have got the questions, might have been last meeting.
Is it upperclassmen that are asking?
All kids.
All from
All
7 to
kids,
12?
yeah. I mean, our BOCES kids were a strong advocate for it, and argued with me all the time about it, because, you know, they can't understand why it's okay down 15 minutes from here, we take them on the bus, and then they come back and they're getting yelled at, and I'm confiscating their hat. There are schools that they still have a policy, but they don't enforce it. They leave it up to the teacher, sometimes in the classroom, but they said that can be an issue too, because it's inconsistent throughout the school, and you really want to keep your policies relatively consistent. So one teacher's not fighting with them, and the next teacher's allowing it, and so, I mean, there's a lot of different stuff to think about.
Is this gonna trickle down into the elementary building?
We talked a little bit, but I don't see that being an elementary, we didn't go into complete detail, but it's a good question, Mr. Conway. I don't see that as a variable in the elementary with hats.
I just think we need to be specific in the elementary about what types of hats are allowed and what is not allowed. It's a little bit different there, because they got all those goofy hats, and, you know, when you say girls can wear a beanie, what does that mean? What is, you know, they come in with the big pom-poms, and then they come in with the ones that have characters on the front, so.
It's not a hat, you know.
Yeah, baseball cap, that's easy enough.
Sort of like shirts, I
If they
mean,
wear them to school, do they have to take them off when they come in the building?
Right now,
Right now, yes.
Yes.
yeah, right now, yes, even in high school.
and we have hat days where we allow kids to wear hats, they're like, Spirit Week, and
They won't be able to have that anymore.
yeah, we don't have issues with it either. Like, we're not finding that we can't identify kids or that, like,
Well, you don't have an issue until the issue is brought up.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
When it,
We haven't had an
all hell
issue.
breaks loose, then you'll have an issue.
Ultimately, I'm the one who has to deal with the issue, so, I mean, if you're good with them wearing hats, I'm willing to fight with them if issues come about. And
I don't think an elementary kid needs to have a hat with everything else going on. There's a lot of distractions out there, they don't need to wear something on their head.
the only catch that I would have with that, that I worry about is, we'll get a lot of, and again, this is a parent issue, I guess, if we decide to go that route, is my sister in 7th grade gets to wear a hat, and my sister in 5th grade doesn't get to wear anything.
Well, that's the thing of going to high
It's a
school,
privilege.
something to look forward to.
Yep, I mean, you can look at it that way as well.
And if there's issues with it, or it's inappropriate, I confiscate it as with, you know, I would
Like you normally
any other
would.
thing,
There's not really a,
If there's a problem, like if it's inappropriate or something, I mean,
there's not really a policy on this, just so you know, it's kind of what we've done here. So it's not like there's a board policy that says no hats, but we just never have. You know I mean?
What level took this survey? For the whole school?
So it was all levels, 7 through 12, and it was like focus groups. So, you know, we might have had 20 7th graders and 25 8th graders.
What,
and then
what level did the hats come out of?
all
I think-
levels mentioned.
Yeah.
All
All
levels?
the focus groups, you had kids in them saying, you know, that they'd like to.
But you're saying you might have had 20 or 27, or you might have had 10, so you're saying you had 20 people doing this group in each thing, or you're saying you don't know how many people?
No,
was
each
there?
group had different amounts. So I mean, I could give you the exact number, I'd have to look back. Off the top of my head, it was several months ago, so, Nancy, Andres and Sustoya came from CSD. And, you know, we set up the room, they met with entire classes. Some of the classes, because it's high school, are mixed classes. So, you know, one group might have been 10 for one period, another group might have been 25 for another period, and then 26 for, you know, it's about class sizes. So depending on the class they were in and how big that class was at that time. I mean, I could survey parents, I could survey kids if that's what you wanted. If we wanted to send it here, it's fine. If you want to think about it more, like I'm good with whatever.
I'd like to see the numbers and I'd like to see the survey.
So it's not a survey.
Yeah, so what we could do is that Mr. Broadbent, what we could do is we're considering, you know, the use of that. We could do something, send it out to the kids and have them vote, you know, or kind of give their input on it, and then we could have more defined numbers, so it'd be more school-wide too. Is it something they're interested in? If I was betting on the thing, I would guess that.
They probably want
Well,
to,
we
kids
bring it up.
probably
So
want
I
to wear
guess.
their sports hats. for-
I would think they will, you know, the baseball team kids will probably want to wear their baseball team hats to
Yeah.
school, you know what I mean, those kinds of things.
I think he's using the word just to help survey entwined with, it was a focus group where the kids could just say whatever,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
He means the same, it's not like they sat down and filled out
Filled
a
out the
survey, it
yep.
was,
We
the
surveyed their
survey was
thoughts.
the focus group, and it came out, the kids were just asking to wear
Through
baseball
group
hats.
discussion with their peers.
I'm probably the anomaly, but I'm okay with it, because you guys sound like you're fine with it. A privilege for high school 7 through 12, but you would have to define exactly, you know, and then monitor the type of slang and all of that on the hat. And if it becomes an issue, you manage it. Because the kids nowadays, times are changing, respect people wear them in the workplaces, believe it or not, and this and that. But that's just my take.
I mean, there's a lot of kids, because to guess, I probably confiscated between 80 and 100 hats last year. So that's 80 to 100 kids who,
And if other districts
maybe
are doing
40
it.
to 50, there's a couple of them a few times who would love to wear their hats, but, you know, this was something that came up at the end of the year. And so we had a new enrollee the other day, and he asked about it, if he could wear his hat. When I told him they weren't allowed, he took it off his head when he was in the office with me. So, I mean, kids are respectful, if you ask them to be.
So do we wanna come back to it, or go with it?
I'm okay with it.
You're okay with it? Mrs. Schultz is, Mr. Marco?
I'm kind of the old school,
Yeah, okay. Ms.
about the
Lynch?
flag and all that stuff. I mean, they take their hats off.
Oh, they're gonna take
people
their hat
not.
off.
But they're going to, right?
Yeah.
Until somebody says,
Yeah.
hey, take your hat off. How many times you gotta tell them? Until somebody pushes it. Or somebody brings something in and it's under their hat, because now they can hide it in their hat, you know? Kids aren't stupid either.
Ms. Lynch?
I'm old school, I have to think about it.
Okay.
Come back?
Mr. Cameron, want to think about it? No? Okay. Well,
So I'll if we're all right,
It's not a policy.
it's not really, no, I don't have to bring you like a board policy, it's just kind of,
Is it in the handbook?
yeah, it's kind of listed as one of the
Dress
things that,
code.
yeah, but we list a few items in there and like there, and that's one of them that we list, but it's one of those things that we go, et cetera, kind of, you know, other inappropriate things, so that's one of the things that's listed in
Can you
there.
give us a list of what hats you would accept besides a baseball hat and a beanie? I mean,
So-
there's cowboy hats, there's all kinds of hats.
Yeah, so let's table it, and we introduced it, and we'll bring it back on the 12th, and we'll just have a little bit more and go from there and see where it goes. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right.
Any questions about any?
Just a quick question,
Sure.
the ranking of the.
The Regents exams?
Regencies.
Yep.
So, just, I'm not gonna say, but out of 31 kids that took, it says scaled score is.
That's the actual score when it comes to the Regents, because there's a curve.
But the average of all 31 in this one, the average was a 69 on the Regents?
Is it algebra 1?
No. ELA.
Got it. This is not on my-
I just didn't know if that meant that's the total average, cause are these what different kids got and then you did your average?
Yes, that is the average.
So it was a
And
69
then-
for ELA?
Well, when you combine it with
Over
this
here.
one here, so this was 2 separate classes. So this would be our advanced class.
Okay.
So those kids weren't in this final number. When you
Okay,
throw
but these
their
are pretty
numbers in,
low,
it's
huh?
substantially low.
Okay.
There are some low ones, but we also had a lot of really high scores as well. The ELA.
Mrs. Schultz, would you correct me if I'm wrong? One of those, is it earth science, the number was very low. I don't wanna go
All,
through it.
okay, I see, they're all individual classes, you didn't do a
Yeah,
cumulative
sometimes.
of the whole grade, of the whole region.
And if you look at some of them where it's a really small group,
Teacher section.
that may be like our pathways or artificial intelligence scores. You can see the teacher.
70, I'm sorry, I was just curious, but now I see you have each class, you didn't do a total, like, there's 3 classes, you didn't take the 3 averages and average out of 3.
Yeah, this is how,
Okay,
ASOP, the program that the region
Okay.
scores go into, this is how it comes out. So
Okay.
sometimes it'll come out in 5 pages or it'll come out in 2 pages. So you'd ultimately have to add them all up together.
we have to, okay,
So essentially, they're broke down by period, Mr. Rocco?
They're broke down by teacher,
Okay, gotcha.
but sometimes you
Yep.
have things such as like an AP class or something
Yep.
like that,
Yep.
which is separated out,
Yeah, understood.
section numbers for me.
okay.
Do you have another question, Mr. Keller?
No.
No?
Mr. Keller, that one region, there's several different, we have to start putting together an average of it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, like the global studies, throw it back, you know, it's only 3 scores of the average. Students were also allowed to do, there was an appeal system this year, because the scores statewide and because of COVID, we could appeal any student who passed the course and got a 50 or above. So
Okay.
they get credit for Regents. So the state realized that kids are not doing as well on these Regents exams.
Compared to prior years.
Prior years,
Yeah.
so they're putting in that additional kind of appeal process so that, you know, because
Okay.
across the state, even Herkimer County kind of pooled some of our data together.
Okay.
And our kids weren't doing as well as they normally do.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Doherty?
Hi, just got some updates on fall sports for you. I know at the last meeting I had mentioned to you, we were not looking good for soccer numbers for the boys' side of it. And ultimately, we did a little better than I was anticipating based off of the signups, but the most we got at any one of the practices this week was 9. So we're not gonna be able to field the boys' varsity team this year. I haven't announced that anywhere yet. I had Coach Smith let the kids know, just so they didn't hear about it, you know, after everybody else did. But I wanted to let you guys know before I went ahead and officially canceled that season through Scott
Sorry, all over
Galaxy.
Facebook.
Yeah, well, listen, I try as hard as I
I
can to
know.
hold things together, but once it gets out, it's out, you know what I mean? But I wanted to bring it up here and talk about that tonight. I do still have concerns about boys modified soccer as well. The signups were even worse for that, which we'll get into some of the other numbers, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with it too. So at the next meeting, I mean, we're gonna try for it, and Mr. Youngs has always done a good job of recruiting kids to get them out there, but at the next meeting, I very well could be telling you that I don't think we're gonna have a boys modified soccer team this year either, But, oh, go ahead.
In the future, if we know numbers are gonna be down, I know we do some combining, would we start now to try to
So
get?
I had already tried that once I saw that the numbers were bad. None of the schools in the area got back to me and were interested. Two of them are already combined, so they weren't gonna take a third school on. Some of the other ones that are real close are in no need of numbers, you know what I mean? Because they're already making cuts in their programs, so you're not gonna take on some other schools. So I did look into that, you know, not officially because we weren't to that point yet, but there was no interest from anybody to do any of that, so.
Are the boys given the option to run cross-country or
Yes,
during football?
yep.
Have any of them taken
Well,
advantage of that?
this, like I said, I mean, it all happened yesterday morning, that we did all that, so, I did have one parent reach out to me and I said, absolutely, you can switch over and you can count 3 of the practices that you attended towards the new sport that you choose to play. It's not all doom and gloom. I mean, we did go through this before. There was a year, my second year doing this, we didn't have a soccer team, and then the next year we came back. I mean, that was when they all started as 8th graders, and 3 years later they won a league championship, you know what I mean? So it's not like we'll never see soccer here again, but we're small enough that when you're supporting 3 boys programs in the fall, you get a small class come through, or you get a bunch of kids that like football, or you know, you got some runners. It's just enough. We're always fringy on the numbers anyways, you know what I mean? We're not to the point where we're making cuts from our programs, so it didn't work this year, so.
They had 3 practices last week?
They practice every day. I had them go, because just in case we had a couple more show up. I mean, so what happened to us 2 years ago was we were real close on the numbers. We only had 9, and then we ended up having 4 kids that signed up for football. They had played the previous COVID year. They had the opportunity to play soccer, and then they played football in the spring. They signed up for football in the fall again. But they decided that they wanted to come back after that. You know what I mean? So we ended up having the numbers. So I was holding out, you know, the possibility that some of that would happen, because we had big numbers over in football to start. You know what I mean? But none of the kids, nobody shook out of any of the programs yet. So
So if they practice 5 days, they can only carry 3 days over to another sport. Why is that?
if they switch the sport, it's not our rule. That's
Okay.
that's section rule. So
Okay.
yeah.
Is there any way for the kids that were interested and still are in soccer to maybe do, I mean, I don't know if you'd have to have an adult, but maybe have like an intramural, so they can still stay with their skills and still practice? Is
So I
that-
mean, going back to the COVID thing, we did that with modified. I mean,
You know what I mean, so at least they can still scrimmage each other or
yeah.
still play with, you know, because to have a whole year off, it's gonna hurt your program anyway. Is that a possibility?
So what could happen, I mean, we'll see how the modified numbers go. We could potentially look into for a year creating some sort of in-house, like you said, you know, compete with each other right here
At
after
least they're
school,
still
different things, you know,
on
we
their
could,
skills.
you could keep one of the coaches on. I don't have a, you know, if you would be thinking about something other than the coaching salary, I'd have to work
Figure
on
something
something
out
out
with
with
that.
that, yeah. But I mean, it's a possibility if that's what we wanted to do for a year, have, you know, maybe the guy that coaches the modified soccer or do something after school, he probably would be willing to do something, I would guess.
I think either one of them would be
Yeah.
willing.
Yeah, so,
And then you would keep interest in it.
Well, that's
It's
fine,
actually
you
a
know,
really good
it's
idea.
not-
I mean, it's,
yeah.
I mean, they can't go back and play ace all, you
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean, but
Mhm.
at least they could stay together, work together, and
Yeah.
still build on your program
Mhm.
without losing a year.
Yeah.
I don't know how many seniors would have gone out.
Well, that's the other part of the problem. I mean, we lost a whole bunch of seniors last year. I think we ended up graduating 6 kids from the team last year, so.
So that hurt it anyway,
Yeah, it was a combination, it was a perfect storm for it, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
but
So-
I would like to at least see them be able to still get together as a group, if possible.
I'll bring that back to you at the next meeting, we'll see what we can do, we'll see how we make out with modified and go from there.
As for numbers, varsity football, we're at 24 right now, which is a little bit bigger, you know what I mean? So that's there. Where we're actually really big is we haven't had a modified football team in quite some time, but we have, I just got my text message report, we got 29 out there tonight. So we're really, really big on that. Part of that is because there was no U12 modified or Pop Warner team this year. So that's why we weren't able to have modified last year, because the kids weren't sure with the COVID restrictions what they would be. They knew they'd be able to play Pop Warner, so they all played that last year, and we didn't have enough for modified football. This year, they're all playing modified football, and there isn't enough for the Pop Warner team. Which does lead us to, I don't know if you know this, you probably don't, but there is a nationwide helmet shortage out there. Stadium Systems was only able to deliver half of the helmets that we have. So currently right now, if all 29 of those kids come back, we may end up 2 helmets short, which I've reached out to a couple of schools that have borrowed helmets from us before, and Pop Warner doesn't have a U12 team, so they do have some extra helmets laying around. I've checked with them, but I just wanted you guys to know about that too, in case anybody asks you about a helmet shortage, or if you've got a secret stash at home, talk to me. So you're 29 for that. Girls varsity cheer, we have 9 girls cheering right now. Girls varsity soccer, we have 18. Modified numbers are right about the same exact thing for signups, but I don't know until they actually show up for their first practice of what will be for girls modified soccer. Cross country, we have 7 varsity girls with 6 modified runners here tonight at practice, 2 varsity boys with 5 modified boys runners here tonight, so he's got a nice modified squad coming up. And that's the same deal. His varsity numbers are really low right now because he had a big group a couple of years ago and they graduated out. And that's kind of, cross country is a little bit similar to golf in that regard. You build up a group and then they move out on you. 9 varsity swimmers right now, 3 modified girls are interested, are gonna do it. Modified football cross country began today. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we plan for the homecoming game. We'll do our senior recognition before the game like we always do, but then this is actually the 25th anniversary of the state championship team, so we would like to just honor them at halftime. We'll have something go out. If people want to come to the game, we'll say their names, you know what I mean, and we'll just acknowledge that game. So I don't have any updates on winter or spring sports at this point. Miscellaneous. We are looking, hopefully, the second half of the school year to have Coach Russo certified as a lifeguard instructor, so we could start doing that as a class here at school, because it is very, very difficult to find a lifeguard, and if we're able to kind of foster our own here, kind of the same idea what we're trying to do with Coach Hoban's fitness class and the fitness center. If we could do this in the pool too, then we could have, you know, new, young, hopefully potential employees available to us. So that's all I got. Does anybody have any questions?
How's that? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ray.
So I had a few applicants for bus drivers. Seems to be, once school ends, they leave their, are willing to leave their current employers. So I did have a few applications for that. I did do a bunch of cold calls, so to speak. I called a bunch of different people that inquired in years past to see what we had, and like I said, we did get a few applicants. All the bus runs are set for the upcoming year. Our 3 large buses and the small one are expected to be delivered in December. We're sold up from the factory. They're having trouble getting parts, so, but they should be here. They're saying by December. I also went to a presentation on electric buses. I don't know if some of you guys have heard that by 2027 we're supposed to have 0 emission buses is all we're going to be able to purchase. Right now electric buses are the only thing that's out there for 0 emission. Propane is very close to being 0 emission, and they're also talking about a hydrogen powered bus. There's some grant money out there. Some neighboring districts I think might be applying for it, but there's a lot of things that come with that. Electric bus right now is about $430,000 to purchase, and the grant money is $350,000, and it's also a complete upgrade that would have to do on our power system coming into the school. So there's a lot of money that it would cost us to go that route. A lot of people are thinking the same way that I am. By 2027, there's going to be another alternative besides electric, or they're going to have to push that date out because they just can't produce that many buses in that time frame. That's pretty much all I have. You guys have any questions?
I have a quick question. For your bus routes, do you send home notices as to what bus their child is on and what time pickup is?
No, we don't send anything out.
I know at the back of the thing that comes home, I can't, thank you, the
Yeah.
newsletter, you do show your routes, but I didn't know if there was a way that we could maybe better inform parents as to like what time.
So the drivers call the parents, introduce themselves as, you know, Mrs. Lindsay, I'm going to be your bus driver this year, and this will be the pickup time. They're doing that actually this week.
Yeah,
She should be calling you this week.
I've never gotten a call.
I got a call at my house, or my wife got a call this week.
I just didn't, no one's called me.
That's how we've handled it in the
You
past.
say they're doing it this week?
What's that?
They're calling them
Yeah,
this week?
they're calling this
Is
week.
that something new?
We
Or is
started
it just
that
like
2 years ago.
kindergarten, or is it,
Well, we started that 2 years ago.
oh.
We
I
never-
haven't had a phone call.
We never called in the past, and nothing's been printed as far as times. They used to print that in the newsletter, I wanna say maybe 10 or 15 years ago they did it. It was before me, and they stopped doing that based upon, security concerns and things.
Yeah. Right,
Let's go to Hawthorne Road at 8:07, there's just kids standing there.
yeah, just so like, especially like new parents,
Yeah.
which they might get
So,
out
so the
there,
kindergarten
oh,
kids, when they come in for their orientation the first day, I'm out there with them with a list. So the parents will come to me, because they bring their kids in the first day. And then, a lot of them, if they didn't get a call or,
They'll find out that day.
yeah, one of the things that I always harp on is updating the number. You'd be surprised by how many numbers that are in schools we call, there's no answer, phone's full, you can't leave a message, so we really encourage them to clean out their voicemail box and stuff. It's
Right,
difficult.
okay, thank you.
Alright,
Okay.
any other questions?
Just, I wanted to, what I might as well mention right now, the speed zone out front.
Yep, yeah, so the speed zone out front, and I know most people saw the signs already. So I've contacted the state, because I had some people ask me, why isn't there a sign that says speed zone ahead?
Oh.
What they came up with is, they don't have the signs, they can't get them. They put up the signs they have at this point, but they're waiting for other signs to come that are gonna say speed zone ahead or school speed zone ahead. They said they've been ordered, they're just waiting on them.
So initially, when this all came down, I asked for that, and there's some regulations that they don't have to do that because of the length. It has to do with how far away the blinking light is that you can see it, and there's, to their knowledge, or what they told me was, basically there's enough vision for someone to pick up the school blinking light once it starts blinking. With that being said, since then, the new answer is that they're putting them up, but the signs aren't here yet. So there's some signs that are gonna give warnings on that. We'll set up the times with them probably this week sometime as to when we'll start blinking. We'll start blinking on Tuesday, at the day after Labor Day, it'll start blinking we'll come up with the times.
I told them 6:45 to 5:30.
So I don't have to call them. So
That's
we,
good.
those will be the times generally we'd be blinking for now. And we can adjust those too for different things. If we have like graduation on a Saturday where we wouldn't normally have it blinking, we can have that. They'll adjust it, that's all part of your. Yep,
So
you
the
can do,
speed, the speed is only enforced when the lights are blinking.
technically, yes.
Cause right now, like you said, I.
It, but the way they put the signage up, it doesn't look that way. It looks
Right,
like
right.
45 all the way across.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I'll be getting a ticket.
There is a
Little
new,
boy needs something.
Yeah.
there is a new engineer in Herkimer, for the state DOT, and he just started, they've had some changeover in the past 6 months, they had somebody else filling in. So some of the stuff is new to him, so he's, they're real wishy-washy, I guess, on the
So I'll be putting, this week, I'll put something out on the website, I'll put something out on our social media and so forth that just remind people that the speed zone will start to be enforced next week, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Any questions on the consent agenda? Okay, I have a motion to go into.
Nope, motion to approve the consent.
Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mrs. Schultz and Mrs. Lynch. Everybody in favor? Thank you. All right, now can I have a motion to go into executive session?
For what?
Oh,
For appointment of personnel matters, including review and appointment of employees and contract negotiations. Ms. Lynch? Ms. Lynch? All in favor? Okay, thank you. welcome back. We're going to begin with our action items. Motion to approve resignation. Okay. I'd like to have a motion to, for the resignation of Megan McCormick, middle school, high school mathematics teacher, effective August 10th, 2022. Ms. Lynch first. Janine second. All in favor? Okay. Some appointments here. Motion for Dennis Lynch, building mechanic, for the negotiated hourly rate of the CSEA bargaining agreement, retroactive August 1st, 2022. Mrs. Schultz, and then Mr. Meckel. All in favor? Thank you. Jacqueline Santmeyer, teaching assistant, for the negotiated salary of the CSEA bargaining agreement, effective August 30th, 2022. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor? Jacqueline Santmeyer, coach, girls swim, step 1 of the extracurricular index of the WCVTA bargaining agreement, effective 2022 through the 2023 school year. Janine? Sean? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, good. Lonzo Passage, bus driver, part or full-time, for the negotiated hourly rate of the CSEA bargaining agreement, effective August 30th, 2022. Sarah? Sean? All in favor? Opposed? Richard Snyder, bus driver, full-time employee per the negotiated hourly rate of the CSEA bargaining agreement, effective August 30th, 2022. Janine? Sarah, all in favor? Opposed? No? Good. Brandon Gabrowski, volunteer assistant football, effective the 2022-2023 school year. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Parson? Good, okay. And we have substitutes. Megan Barnes, substitute food service worker and substitute cleaner, for the negotiated hourly rate of the CSEA bargaining agreement, effective August 9th, 2022. Janine, Sarah, all in favor? Okay. Allison Mahay, non-certified substitute teacher, teaching assistant, monitor aide, K-12, for the district approved rate chart, effective August 30th, 2022. Janine, Sarah, all in favor? Okay. Kimber Wiggins, non-certified substitute teacher, teaching assistant, monitor aide, K-12, for the district approved rate chart, effective August 30th, 2022. Sean, and then Sarah, all in favor? Any opposed? No. Abigail Kelly, non-certified substitute teacher, teaching assistant, monitor aide, K-12, for the district approved rate chart, effective August 30th, 2022. Janine first, Sean second, all in favor? Everybody? And Aaron Borncheck, substitute lifeguard, for the negotiated hourly rate of the CSEA bargaining agreement, effective August 29th, 2022. I'm sorry, I was reading.
You're good.
Sarah and Janine. All in favor? Good. Me too.
So the tax levy's in there. The tax levy for this year is in the amount of $5,139,357. This is an annual approval for the total amount. This is the exact same rate that we've had the previous 2 years. So you'll need to motion to approve the tax levy at $5,139,357.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the tax levy This year's amount remains unchanged from the previous 2 years at $5,139,357. Carson first, Sean second, all in favor? Okay. The athletic contract?
Yeah, so you have a copy of the updated athletic agreement that's in your packets. We discussed a few changes to that over the last couple of months here. Those changes are reflected in your packet. In that packet, you'll see the second consequences for substance abuse and violations. Second offense now is been increased from 30 to 50% for athletic contests for that season. So the first offense is 20%, second offense is 50% for illegal substances. We also mentioned that the substance abuse consequences will be cumulative for the student during their athletic careers. Violations that occur during the student's middle school years will reset upon entering grade 9. Individual suspensions can carry over from one season to the next if the current season does not fulfill the required penalty. That was a clarification in our, just to make sure everybody understands that. Whatever the penalty is for that specific sports season, if the full penalty can't be fulfilled, it carries over into the next sports season that we have. We also discussed, the middle school being its own entity in this situation, and the high school years being its own entity as well, and so forth. And obviously, kids make mistakes. First offense, second offense for that thing gets a little bit stronger, and you'll see it increases as we go along there. All the items that we discussed and kind of agreed upon in the last meeting, reviewed that internally as well, agreed upon. So if everybody's in good shape with this, we would motion to approve the updated interscholastic.
You said second offense was 50%?
Yes, yep,
I thought you said 30.
it was, yep, and that's what we changed, it, 30 to 50, yep, yep, yep. So if everybody is good with that, we can motion to approve the updated interscholastic sports handbook.
Can I have a motion to approve the updated contract for the athletic? Sean first. Sarah second, all in favor? Any opposed? No. Okay. Our district plans?
So there are 3 plans that are inside of your packet. These are annual approvals for our district. The 2022-23 professional development plan is in there. Hopefully you had a chance just to go through that. This guides our professional development in the district and works as an overview in connection with both our district comprehensive improvement plan, which is in your packet, and your school comprehensive education plan. Both the district comprehensive improvement plan and the school comprehensive education plan have been reviewed and approved by the state. We've been doing this for multiple years now. Once they're approved by, all 3 of these, once they're approved by Board of Education, get posted on our website annually for anybody to see, and that guides our educational plans and professional development for the upcoming year. The approval's got to be individual, just so you know that, and I'll answer any questions that anybody has regarding any of those plans.
This should be one of the final years or stages in this process?
So I just got updated a little bit on this at a meeting I was at last week. They are starting to transition to a new list, or an updated list of who is required to be on the list. However, in that meeting and through people that have been involved and internally, they don't feel that there will be anyone that gets off of a list right away. There will only be additions to that list. So I am not anticipating, with the way the structure is right now, us getting off the list at any point in time right now.
And there's funding tied to this.
Yeah, so there's a lot of funding tied to this. Yes, it's a good question. A lot of funding tied. And that continues to be increased each year. So right now, we have pretty good support, planning. Our team here at the school and our administrators have really worked hard on these, so we review us. It gives us a reflection. Quite honestly, these will be documents that we'll likely use for years to come. This isn't just something because we're doing this anymore now that we did it. It'll be part of what we do. But to answer your question, I don't anticipate, at least for a little bit of time, any sort of transitions for schools yet.
Any questions? Good. Okay, can we have a motion to approve the district plans for the 2022-23 professional development plan? Sarah first, Janine, all in favor? Okay. Can we have a motion for the district plans for the 2022-23 district comprehensive improvement plan? Sean, Janine, all in favor? Okay. And the district plans for the 2022-23 school comprehensive education plan. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Okay. Lead evaluator.
So, every year we do this. Annually, Mrs. Holmes and Mr. Broadbent must be approved. We get annually trained and renewed, our certification renewed. All that has been completed. Mr. Broadbent and Mrs. Holmes get renewed as lead evaluators for the teaching staff, and I get renewed every year and retrained every year as lead evaluator for both of our principals here. So this can all be done in one motion, but you just have to approve all three of us as lead evaluators for the 22-23 school year.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the lead evaluator for our district for Mr. Shepherdson, Mr. Broadbent, and Mrs. Holmes? Janine and Sean. All in favor? Okay, thank you. We're gonna move along with our transportation routes.
So in your packet, you have a list of what our routes are for the year. This again is an annual approved document for the board that basically outlines what our bus routes are and where we are going with our buses for this year. I do have Mr. Ray here if there's any questions on this before we approve this, but this is the list that we work from.
No Notre Dame kids?
Nope.
We had, two that could potentially go, but they were out of the mileage limitation.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion to approve the transportation routes? Sean first, Janine second, all in favor? Okay, so now we have the federal funding resolution.
So one more action item, the federal funding. Today we received some documents from our architects, our financial team, Dr. Timms, in terms of resolutions that as we move into the next phase of the project, which we'll talk about tonight, our board authorizing the use of the federal funds or portions of the federal funds to help support the capital project and the air quality improvements that are going to take place in the building in the upcoming project. There are 3 separate resolutions because there are 3 separate federal funding sources that are part of this. You have that in front of you. I can answer any questions you have about them, but you'll see 3 different dollar amounts. We won't read out all the complete resolution, but we'll read out the approval of the first paragraph and the amount that we're approving for use toward improvements to the school facility. So is there any questions on that before I have Mrs. Michael go through each of those with you?
Questions?
This is all federal funding that we've talked about throughout the project.
Okay, so can I have a or can I say that, or just read it?
Read that off. Yep.
All right, so whereas the West Canada Valley Central School District has applied for and received grant funding in the amount of $612,910 from the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund pursuant to the 2021 Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. Can I have a motion to approve? Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor? Okay. The second one is, whereas the West Canada Valley Central School District has applied for and received grant funding in the amount of $14,148 from the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund pursuant of the 2021 Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act. Have a motion to approve or accept? Sarah first, Sean second, all in favor? Okay, and the last one, whereas the West Canada Valley Central School District has applied for and received grant funding in the amount of $963,823 from the American Rescue Plan Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief Fund. I have Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? item here is the, may I have a motion to approve the terms and conditions for Felix Ray, start date July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2024. Sean first, Janine second, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. Next is our discussion items.
Yeah, so I'll start with our opening plan update. Nothing much has changed since what I've been discussing with you, and I'll answer any questions that you have about this. I've been trying to keep everyone informed. I'll be continuing to post some things as I get them, FAQs and things that have been sent out. But to kind of summarize the opening of school, this is the most normal start to a school year that we've had in a long time. So certainly the CDC and the Department of Health are not saying that COVID doesn't exist. They're not saying that we're not going to continue to do precautionary things and so forth within our schools, but they are really pushing forward toward getting us back to normalcy in our school districts. So essentially at this point in time, and I think these are the number one question I always get is, how are we handling COVID this year? Well, in terms of COVID prevention, we're not going to change much in terms of our hygiene, air quality, our cleanliness of the building, those kinds of things. Our monitoring of COVID and any sort of potential spreads of that in the district, that'll be something that we've really just kind of gotten used to. That's just part of our way of doing things now. But what has really changed, and kind of changed a little bit at the end of last year, but really we're down to COVID positives at this point in time are out for 5 days, or until symptoms do not subside. They may be out a little bit longer than that if they're not fever free for 24 hours, if they're not seeing reductions in symptoms. But typically, the minimum time for them will be 5 days, with day 0 being the day that either they were tested if there were no symptoms, or the day that symptoms started. So that's day 0, and then it would be 5 days after that. If everything else is reduced and there's no fever within 24 hours, day 6 they can return to school. The remaining people, in terms of the contact tracing and things like that, we will monitor it, but there is no contact tracing. There is no requirement under exposures. They ask you to monitor yourselves. If you are becoming symptomatic at that point in time, the same process will occur and so forth. So I expect the disruptions, unless something changes drastically with positive cases, I expect disruption to be very minimal in regards to COVID and so forth. There's no mask requirement. Again, as anybody else or any schools, there's no regulation against masks. So if, we do have some kids with underlying conditions and things like that that choose to wear masks, they can continue to do that. But other than that, rooms will look back in, I'm going to take everybody on a tour tonight, and you'll see rooms are back looking as normal again. And we'll keep monitoring. So morning program is back. That will start, as you've seen in newsletters and things coming out of the elementary, for a lot of reasons. Security and start. Outside visitors will come in on Fridays for right now. So kids will have it every day, but like they used to. But the visiting part of it will be on Fridays. We're hoping that's going to be a good system for us and a good system for everybody else going forward for a lot of different reasons. All of our sports are intact to go move forward with. Same rules apply for sports. You're out 5 days, you're out 5 days. But the impact on the team is only related to symptomatic or positive cases. So there's no restrictions on attendance at events. We're holding all of our events this year, the musical, everything that we normally would do. And again, if anything changes along the way, I'll update people. But essentially, probably the most normal update that we've had in a few years. So with that being said, any questions that anybody has at this point in time in regards to this, the opening this year?
Did you mention that students won't have the Zooming, like if they're out,
Yep,
you're out?
so good question. So this year, there will be no requirement to provide you, if you're out just like you were in past years. You're sick, we'll send work home to you. When you get better, you come back to school. So there won't be any of that this year as well.
Any questions? Okay, the capital project.
So, you have a couple of documents that I've given to you that are in front of you. One is a detailed document that looks like this. It's got a lot of numbers and a lot of categories in it. And then the other document you were given is sort of a spreadsheet here, again, for you to review. I'm gonna take you through this, tell you where we're at this point in time with our project, and then answer any questions you have. Again, we're still not at a point where any decisions are going to be made. The big document, the LaChase document that you have in front of you with all the details in it, is the submission that is going to SED. After the federal funding resolutions were approved tonight, they will be put into the system and it will be submitted to SED. That was, along with one other little proposal, was the last two remaining things. We are on schedule, on track. They'll be submitted to SED, and this project that you see on paper here will be looking to get approved by state ed. That's part one to this. At that point in time, we're going to start to monitor the numbers and so forth. And those of you that have been involved with projects before know that estimates are estimates, and estimates add in incidental costs and a lot of other things, which I'm going to take you through in your document. But I wanted you to get an idea today, even if it's a little bit early for you, to the documents that I am working off of and Kelly's working off of and what we're looking at. Before we get into any sort of questions about the detail, I want you to flip all the way over to the back of this packet here. On the back where it summarizes all the estimates here. So when we do a project, and this is for any project, and I'll talk a little bit about the differences and answer questions, but the bottom line with this is, in these projects, you'll see along the top the labor, the materials, the subcontracts, the equipment, other funding, construction costs, trade and general sub-bonds that are included. They're all part of the total cost of a project. As you get to the bottom, or in the middle I should say, you'll see there is a 10% design contingency put in there, which means there's $403,678 in this project that is being there in case we need to do other design things. We might not need to do that, but it's there in case we need to. The second one is the escalation. This is a complete estimate of 8%, or $355,237. So there's another amount of money between those two. We're raising it up $758,915. Underneath that, you'll see there's a contingency for the construction aspect, which is 10% right now, because of the way things cost right now at $479,589. And then you'll see there are project incidentals and other soft costs at $1,218,000. Now, that gets you a total of $7,797,641. And those of you that have been working on the project will see that that is well over the number that we're looking at to spend, or has been approved to spend, I should say, on the project. Okay? So again, as time went on here, I wanted you to get a look at where we're at. So in our discussions, I've talked to you a little bit about the anticipation of us sitting down and starting to review this, maybe even in a separate meeting at some point, where we have to make some good hard decisions on what's going to be potentially removed and what's going to be potentially pushed off into an alternate when we go to bid on that during the winter of this year. Now, as time goes on, these estimates will start to close out a little bit. We'll start to shrink them down a little bit, keeping in mind that there are some contingencies in there that will allow us potentially to put alternates there. And worst case scenario, we won't be able to do them, but more than likely, as long as there's not a lot of issues in the project, we've got enough incidental costs and contingencies in this project to be able to cover those things, okay? Now, with that being said, in the previous project that I worked with most of you on, I would have been real confident to say, don't worry about this sheet. We're gonna get down into the number, no issues here. There's a lot of contingency, a lot of money that we don't need in here. We're gonna be able to do everything, and I'll probably have to come back to you and say, we can do a few more things if you want to with the remaining money. Obviously, with the current situation, not as confident about that. We don't know where the money's going to be, where the construction costs, the cost of materials, all those kinds of things. So this is an extremely conservative outlook in terms of worst case scenario of what we're looking at in terms of this. So I just want you to be aware of it, see the items that are on the list and the detail that they give me in terms of itemized costs and estimates that are in this right now. Obviously, everything that's on this list won't hopefully cost as much as they're saying, and things will go with that. So I want you to go over to the other sheet, which is the single sheet that looks like this that I gave you also today. So I want to give you just an idea. This is just a draft of some things that you could potentially look at, or other things that are on here that you could potentially look at as well. If you look at this, I'll go to number 1. So the masonry reappointing of the exterior, yes, needs to be done. Right now they have a number with everything, construction, contingencies, and everything of $113,000. Now, we may be able to take all of that out, portions of it, because we may have the staff to be able to do some of those things here. So we may have a discussion about, do we want some of it in there and not all of it, and get certain portions of it done and try to handle some other things in-house to lessen our cost there. The second thing, and I'll take you on the tour today to see that again, the handrails and the stairwells of the elementary. Right now, they've got an $85,000 number on that in the total cost of that. I'll talk to you a little bit about that. We can kind of look at that as well. Potential reductions there as well. The bleachers are at $450,275. Those are things we can look at. Auditorium painting, ceiling with walls, the cove lights, all those kinds of things. One of the things I want you to notice on that we kind of broke down for you, or Kelly kind of broke down, is look at number 4, the scaffolding costs of that, $110,000 just for the scaffolding. Okay, that's the same issue in the pool, because they have to bring in scaffolding that overarches the seating in there and all these kinds of things. In the pool, they have to overarch. There is an extreme cost to that. Now, I say that in the initial cost, that's where they're there. We're going to talk a lot more about that, but these are the kinds of things that get put into the discussion and the numbers that we're looking at. The pool painting, same thing, $140,000 to paint the pool area and change the acoustic panels that are over the top. Scaffolding's at $75K for that. So, you know, there's just some things as we get closer into the numbers that we're going to look at to try to adjust some things. This courtyard drainage is already going to be removed at $35,000 because it doesn't exist. So it was a BCS item, but it doesn't exist. We don't need to do anything with that. Cabinet unit heaters in the hallway. There's some old unit heaters that function. They're worth, you know, $50,000. We may be able to replace a couple of them and keep the other ones that are in working order. The PA and the phone upgrades, you'll see on there is around $50,000 as well. We have smart bond money that we'll be talking about that we haven't even touched yet, which that would fit into. So if we needed to reduce, maybe we'd pull that, put it into the smart bond money. Auditorium performance lighting, $250,000 for all the new lighting and all the stage lighting and all the things that are in there with all the costs. You know, we're going to look at that. On here, you'll see where it says take out, alternates, keep in. These are just examples of things as we went through how we would kind of break this down. Bus garage lighting upgrades, you'll see that's there. The stairwell walls, plumbing and pool work. There was talk of reducing the scope. I'm going to take you around to see that today. You know, we may not have the opportunity to do that. Plumbing, domestic water scope, you know, maybe reducing some scope there. But you can kind of see just in that list, there's 1.6 million. You know, what we took out of 519,000. Alternates we put in at 90,000, and then we kept in 349. That gets us in within the budget just with this sheet. Again, this is not what I'm saying or recommending we do. I'm just giving you an example of some things that we could look at. And as you look through the items and as we start to talk about this and make these decisions together, this is kind of how we'll do that. So, with that being said, the capital project is getting submitted to SED this week. National Grid will be here on Thursday to walk through the building to see what we can take out of the project for energy saving pieces of it, which will be another chunk of money. So whether that's 30,000, 40,000, 50, or 100, whatever it might be in terms of things that we're doing to reduce energy costs, that's another piece of this whole thing. Again, the bids, the way we put things into alternates, there's some strategies that go along with what's alternate and what's not that we'll be working with the team on and so forth as we get closer. If we define an alternate, we'll want to define what's our most important alternate in case we can, you know, yeah, we want to make this an alternate, but you know, we really want to try to get this done. So I guess my point in the whole thing is, as you look through this, and I can answer specific questions to the best of my ability of the detailed list that I gave you, but I wanted you to have everything that I have in front of me at this point in time, and give you an idea of the process of where we're at. So, if everything moves forward with this, the SED approval will happen December-ish. Kelly, you can correct me at any point in time here, December-ish, and then we would be going out to, we'd make some decisions as we get closer to December and into January, and then we'd get the bidding out, would be February-ish, is that what they're thinking?
They're hoping to settle in February.
Yeah, so February bidding, and then the project would start next summer. So that's kind of where we're at on schedule right now. But again, for tonight's purposes, I wanted to give you the information and answer any initial questions and give you the documents so you could kind of educate yourselves too on some things that we're going to be looking at together at some point.
What was the cost of air conditioning?
The total cost of it?
Yeah.
Cal? Do you have Yep, they broke it down so much on this one. I want to say the whole thing was around $1 million, a little over $1 million. Would I be right in saying that? More than that. Keep in mind, some of the stuff on here for air quality is in the federal funding pieces of this, that some things on our items won't qualify for as well. So as we talk about that too, and reductions, that'll be a variable into that piece of it too.
You can get that number and email it to me.
Yeah, I
I'll have to
will.
look it up.
Yep, thank you, sir.
Just think that should be on this list too.
Yep. Yeah, please don't, I wanted to give you an example. That's not a
Yep,
defined
nope.
list by anything. Yeah, I don't want you to think that's
No,
what I'm
the
thinking.
new thing, the
Yep.
bleachers were on there, the air conditioner.
Yep.
That's just me.
Yep, understand. Yeah, I'll give you a breakdown of that cost, Heather. Any other questions at this stage of the game on anything that's here? I do want to sort of update you. Obviously, we're exploring the cost of the lights that are out there and the potential donation piece of that. We're continuing to have those discussions. They're preliminary at this point. Haven't heard back, although I've spoke with the donor that is interested in doing something with that. So I will, keep you up to date on anything that has to do with that as well before we make any final decisions on that as well.
Okay, the Board of Education goals.
So in your packet, you have a copy of your goals. These are the goals that you had for last year. Again, board goals can be really targeted specific. They can be overarching. This district has taken an overarching look at it, and they have 6 specific overarching goals as a district that they want to continue and maintain. I present that to you tonight. It also guides the goals of myself for the year, and the goal, helps to guide our district goals as well. So as you look at this, I've given you an opportunity. If there are no updates to it, you could approve that tonight as well as an action item, approve your goals and get that in place before September 1st as well. If you'd like to make some changes or look at this a little bit further, I could, again, bring it back on September 12th. But if we like the way our goals are set up, we like what it looks like, we think those are good. These also get posted on the website of westcanada.org, along with my goals as well, and that's how that works. So, any comments, questions, concerns, changes, anything, anybody? Okay.
I'm gonna waive and go ahead and
Yep.
approve. I have a motion to approve the Board of Education goals for 2022 and 2023 school year. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor? And we have 2 policies here. First one is policy 7210, student evaluation.
Yeah, so, and I have Mr. Broadbent here as well, so if you have any questions. So this is the first reading. We're not taking any action on this tonight. This is our first reading of this, and I want to just highlight some things that have been discussed. I know Mr. Broadbent will be going back with his staff in the upcoming 3 days here that we have this week with our staff prior to school starting to discuss some of this as well with them and get their input. I would bring their input, and Mr. Broadbent would bring their input back to us on the September 12th meeting. But I do want to give you an overview and answer any questions on what you see here. Take any input that you have initially on this, and then we would come back in September and discuss further. So the top copy of Policy 7210 is what we currently have in place from 2017. So this has been updated with regulations once. But if you flip through to, and I believe you have a colored portion of that, I hope you do, inside. This would be the draft of the update. And I want you to look at a couple things, and again, Mr. Broadbent, at the end, I'll ask you if I forgot anything with this. If you look at all the areas that are in blue, those are updated language that would be included in the grading system. And some of that is a change from the way we do some things here. Bear with me while I just read this out loud. Is the intent of this policy to pilot a grading system during the 2022-23 school year in which a minimum quarterly grade of Circle 50 shall be recorded during quarters 1 and 2 for middle school full year courses for grades 7 and 8. Likewise, a minimum quarterly grade of a Circle 50 shall be recorded during the first quarter of any half-year course in grades 7 and 8. The minimum grade of Circle 50 does not apply to 10-week courses or high school level courses, Algebra 1, Spanish 1, etc. If the program is successful, the intent will be to expand the policy as outlined above to also include all credit-bearing high school courses beginning in the 23-24 school year. So excuse me, it doesn't say etc. So bottom line with that is, in the idea behind grading and some of the training we have on grading right now, is kids that are in the middle school level who are coming or taking classes, transitioning to middle school, who end up get off to a rough start with a 20 average or even worse than that, makes it very challenging for them to rally back out of that. That's not really what we're trying to get at the middle school level. And this has kind of come from a lot of our review of our current middle school policies and how we do some things. So the intent of this evaluation would be to get us to a point where kids don't get smashed in the first 2 months. But it's on them to get themselves back going here and to get those grades up to where they need to be at the end of the year. So that's the first marking period draft discussion change. The second one is a little bit further down. It says at the conclusion of course, a comprehensive local final examination is to be given. Every class, regardless of whether it's Regencies, will give that. All students enrolled in any course for which Regents examinations is given shall complete such Regents exam in addition to the comprehensive local examination. We needed some clarification on that piece of it, and you'll see the deletions that are also included in that with the crossouts. The next update is to the value of the school year versus the value of the final exam itself when it comes to a local exam especially. So what we've looked at in the past is basically the final exam has been 20% of the final overall average, which means you go to school all year and have whatever grades, and the one test that's at the end is essentially almost a whole quarter of the year, like a full marking period quarter. A little bit less than that, but the concept is there. So what is being looked at is calculating the school year and the grades of the school year a little bit stronger at 88%. 22% per quarter, with the final examination being 12% of their overall grade rather than the 20%. So that we place a little bit more value on the body of work for the year and a little less value on one specific test at the end of the year. And again, this is a local exam that we're talking about here where we designed that. You will see the other crossouts that are on there if you flip to the next page. All credit-bearing courses, including PE, are included in GPA calculation. Note that classroom participation is a legitimate factor that teachers may consider in assessing a student's academic performance. Currently, right now, physical education in our building is given a numerical grade. It is not a pass-fail subject, yet we don't count that in the student's overall average. So the proposal is, with this not being pass-fail and music and all the other subjects in the school being counted, why wouldn't physical education be, included? Unless we were looking at that being a pass-fail type of thing, because it's not part of the grading purposes. And currently, right now, it's not. So that's just another piece of this policy that's being adjusted. If you keep going through this, there's some other things in here. There's some clarifications, as you'll see the grade levels. This is on page 3 of 6 of the new policy. Grade 10, all students whose remaining graduation credit requirements are attainable within 3 school years, including the current year. So what you're looking at here for grade 10 and 11 is our ability. Our policy currently states right now you just like kind of fail the grade or have to repeat the grade. Well, because of scheduling and how we can manipulate and double up in kids, if a kid can move on to the next level of grade while making up the classes in the previous grade that they did not pass, why wouldn't we continue to move them along in hopes that they'll take advantage of those kinds of things instead of them staying back another year, impacting graduation rates, and keep them right with their cohort? So we've hurt ourselves at times with graduation rates because we'll have kids graduate, and maybe they will still graduate late. That's okay. But when they do graduation rates, and you see those in the paper, and ours is 98% this year, you'll see years where maybe we're at 80-something%. And that may not be because we had dropouts. That may be because we've had a kid we retained who's in a new cohort, so we already know that kid's not graduating with his cohort, and he's a 5th year or she's a 5th year graduate. The way the policy's written and how we've done things isn't advantageous to the student, nor is it advantageous to our own graduation data as well. So these two requirements, and again, if you fail everything, you can't do it all and graduate, you're gonna have to repeat it. This is more about, you've got to take a couple math classes, you've got to take a couple English, but if you get it done, you're going to stay on track to graduate on time. Flipping over to the next page, middle school, we looked at that as well. Middle school here, as we've kind of combined that, we did a little bit of this with the athletic too. One of the things that's come out of all of our middle school evaluations is, although it's one building, it's still kind of a separate area where kids are still transitioning and learning, and I don't want to say it's elementary, but it's the next level from that. And one of the things we talked about is, we wouldn't necessarily retain a kid in 6th grade and keep a 13, 14-year-old in 6th grade. We give them an opportunity to advance on. The same kind of thing we want to do when we get to 7th, 8th. We want to give kids an opportunity through the regular year, through summer school, through gaining non-credit classes and learning to be good students in 7th and 8th grade, to get them started in 9th grade with their cohort. And our policies currently make that challenging because of potential failures. We've had kids, we statistically have not had a lot of success with retaining middle school kids and where that ends up going. Now, once you get to 9th grade, you're kind of on your own. This is high school, this is credit-bearing classes, it is what it is now, but in 7th and 8th, we're still in that process, just like we do in elementary, of teaching students to be good students and what it takes to be a good student, and so that they're prepared to take high school level classes in 9th. So the writing on this kind of talks a little bit about that and how we would send kids to summer school and so forth with that. Again, this is sort of a long policy, which is why we're not taking any action. The next page talks about half-year courses, the 45, 45, and 10% for the exam. As we talked about, putting a little more emphasis on the yearly grades. We talked about credit recovery from the summer in here that's clarified. Students in grades 7 through 12 must have been previously enrolled in a course. That means kids can't just go down to summer school. They have to have taken the class to be eligible to do that. Talked about off-site degree programs. There's a lot of offerings now with different, so we want to make sure that each of those is approved so that parents don't get confused with saying, I can just schedule my kid for an outside class and you better count it. That has to go through our school if they want that credit bearing to come through West Canada Valley. We've increased the number of credits to 5.5 credits per year. We were at 5 credits per year as a minimum. We think another at least half credit minimum is important for them to get another at least half-year class on their schedule so that kids are taking a full load of classes. And I think that is it for this particular policy on student evaluation. Now I know it's a lot. I wanted to give you an opportunity ahead of time. Again, we're not taking any action on this. I can answer any initial questions you have on it tonight. And then you can take it back, and it'll be back on the table again on September 12th for a second reading of this. So initial thoughts on student evaluation and some of the proposals that are in there.
Is the rule still in effect of pass the Regents, pass the class?
So the pass the Regents will give you credit for the class, and Mr. Broadbent, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they still would have to come back and for at least half year pass that half year of the course class. Is that correct?
So they want to get credit for the course. If they pass the, whatever they get, if they pass the Regents, they pass the Regents, they don't have to take that again.
When was that changed?
I don't ever remember, like even when I was here,
Oh, it used to be,
I'm trying to think. I think it's whatever, if your score on the Regents was higher than what you got in the course, so then in essence, yeah, if you pass the Regents, you pass the course, yeah.
you pass the Regents, you pass the class.
Yeah.
I don't
That's
know
not
when
been
that
the case
changed.
since I've been here. I don't know what I'd have to ask how that goes and what the state on regs on that are. I don't know the answer, but that's not, you can get credit for the class, not have to take the class and repeat the Regents and vice versa. You can get your Regents credit, but you've still gotta have, like you can't get 0, 0, 0, 0 and study on your own and get I'm not saying this would happen, it's extreme, but, and then pass the Regents and you pass. So,
Why would you have to take it a half a year if you pass the Regents? It's a state exam.
good question. So,
The state highly recommends that you do not use the Regents exam for any grading purposes. We still do, but they advise that you don't. So I think that's the part.
that's true. They don't want you to include that, which is the importance of the local final exams. They want us to have those be two separate things, kind of. But I'm not saying, Mr. Broadbent, do you know if there are schools that do that's an automatic free ticket?
No, I don't know of any, but I could
Yeah, we can look
email
into
my
that.
group of administrators in Herkimer County.
Yeah,
and
and just see if anybody does that Regents advanced credit with that. I don't know the answer to
I
that.
was just
Yeah.
wondering if that is true, when that changed.
Yeah, so you think at one time here that was the case? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't recall that, so I don't know.
I know when I was here, if you got a higher score in the
I did.
Regents than you did
You
in the
did it?
course.
You failed the class?
That's what I
Okay.
got for the
So I don't know.
And
You're
on that
I'm gonna have to do
class,
some
if you look
research.
on the Regents, it's across that line, the line goes right through that. When it comes to the Regents. And it's crossed.
Oh, so
I would
the
assume if
cross
there's a
out.
line through it, it's gonna be taken out.
So the line that crossed out on that page is if a student fails to show up for the Regents, they automatically fail the course.
So
That they get a 0 for their final, which ultimately would
fail them.
fail them for the course.
See, the passing grade for local used to be 70.
Yes.
And we lowered it to 65.
Yep.
So that it matched the Regents.
Yep.
So if a kid, yeah, they screw around, we know that. But still, they must have got something if they can get a 65. And I don't understand why they would have to take another half a year of that. I mean, there's a half a year that they could take all these extracurricular things we have.
Yeah.
They could be involved with that.
I know we definitely get more kids through.
So we could look into that. I mean, I don't know, I just have to make sure on that, what the regs are and all those kinds of things with that at this point in time, but it's an idea that we can discuss and talk about, for
Doesn't
sure.
matter when the Regents is given.
Well, they would have to pass that in June
June,
or January if it's.
January.
yeah, but.
Well, we do
Why
give
would
the
you
English
fail
Regents
it
in January.
June?
So
Talk about failing the course.
yeah, so we'll have kids, let's take algebra for an example, just to use what Mr. Kemmler said. We could have kids that their overall average, including the local final examination, ends up being a 55 for the school year. So overall, their average for the school year taking algebra is a 55. They take the algebra, everybody sits for the Regents no matter what your grade is, and they pull off a 65 on the Regents. So Mr. Kemmler's question is, I believe, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is at that point in time, they took the class, they passed the state exam that went on to it, credit for the class, they move on. Right now, what would happen is they would get credit for their Regents, so they'd have their Regents credit, the state exam credit.
Yes.
They would not get course credit. So currently what happens here at West Canada is they're re-enrolled because they didn't pass the course. If they take the first 2 quarters of algebra again, if they are passing and they take another local final examination at the end of January, they are given the course credit for taking the class. That's currently the process that we have in place.
Do they have to pass the local to graduate? If they got the Regents credit, do they have to
need
They just have to
credit
pass the
for
class to get their.
Yeah,
their
so that would be a
credit, yeah.
piece of their overall, like the local exam counts a percentage of their overall average.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's a piece of it. It would be 10% in that case, that
But
test. So
they
you'd
still
be-
need credit for the course.
For a half year.
So that's currently how that works. So I'm giving you the extreme. Kid, does nothing all year in US history, gets a 20 every quarter, just doesn't do any homework, does absolutely nothing, but kind of knows the material, takes the Regents exam, gets a 65, they get credit for the course under that change. Right now, they get credit for that, still gotta come back and pass the class at some point. So, that's just something to think about in terms of, I don't know what the regs are on that, I don't.
Well, you're gonna want them to do that, because kids.
See what the state says.
Yeah, I will. I'll look into that a little bit before next reading.
Kids could really
I mean,
manipulate that.
Yep,
You pass the other state
You know what I
exams,
mean?
you
Yep.
pass, you pass.
yep. Other questions at this time on this? Anything that kind of jumped out that concerns you at this point in time? What's on paper here?
Just looking at it real quick, when it said 88%, I lost it,
Yep, yep.
88% of coursework
Yep.
would be their grade. Now, how would that impact a kid if a teacher only gives 10 assignments?
So
To
each
a
course.
teacher that does a daily assignment?
Yeah, so I can't particularly answer that question.
But
'Cause
you know what
every
I'm
class,
saying?
yeah.
That could-
So you're using the reverse of it. You're saying that a kid may not do as well during the quarters and do better on the final exam. Yes. Could it happen? Yes. Most cases, what I've seen is the opposite of that a little
Okay.
bit. That's where this kind of came up
I
in the
just want it to
discussion.
be fair for everyone.
Yeah.
You're just giving 10.
I think the biggest question is that we've placed quite a bit of emphasis on a final local exam that's created in-house. And kids maybe who have really worked hard all year and put together a body of work from their homework to their projects and all the things in there. We have kids that, maybe the test isn't their thing.
Right.
But they're really good students, they work really hard, and then we kind of just give them a last kibosh at the end because their test grade's a little bit lower than really the body of work. So, we're putting a little more emphasis on a full year of school and a little less emphasis on the June 22nd 2-hour test
Yeah.
is kind of where this is going.
They did that for me.
Any other questions on this at this point, or any other initial thoughts on this?
Best.
So I would encourage you just kind of look through it. If you have further questions, we'll bring it back. As I mentioned, Mr. Broadbent's going to talk a little bit with the staff about it as well. We'll bring back some of the thoughts from them. If you have thoughts, we can do as many readings as you want on this, on the adjustment, but I'll bring back a second reading in September, and we'll kind of see where we want to go from there.
What the teachers have to say.
Yep.
Okay, the next policy is 7212. This is with honor roll, valedictorian, salutatorian, and
Yep.
honor graduate.
Yep, so these two are sort of connected a little bit, which is why you have both of them tonight. You'll see the top one is the original policy, the top sheet. The second page, as you go into the colored area, gives you an idea of some of the updates that are in here. So some of the changes of this will students with an average of 85 to 89.99, you'll see, or above crossed out, shall be named to the honor roll. Students with a 90 or above shall be named to the high honor roll. That's kind of a clarification of that roundup thing, just to give everybody knows where you fall on the honor roll list. Some editorial things that are in there where we put grade year and second quarter to the 12th grade year. The valedictorian, salutatorian, and West Canada Valley honor graduates, GPA, again, some clarifications on GPAs in there. And then on the bottom, students who accelerate to graduation may not be considered for junior year college awards due to their accelerated junior status. So can you explain a little bit of that, Glenn, that piece of it?
Yeah, so any student who ultimately doubles up and becomes a senior skips over their 11th grade year. So they're ineligible for any awards that you would get for a junior in that year because you ultimately skipped that year, went right to your senior year.
Because you are part of the senior class.
Now you're part of the senior class, which
Yes.
means you go on the senior trips and all
Yeah.
the fun stuff that seniors get to do. You're kind of giving up some of your 11th grade, well, you're giving up your 11th grade to accelerate and get your privileges as a senior early.
So if you look down through, these are some other things. Students who are enrolled in out-of-district placements, including but not limited to Pathways, VP Tech, Middle Settlement Academy, Tilton School, Online Academy programs, etc., who are no longer enrolled as a West Canada Valley student, such as enrolling in Clarkson, and we've had some of that, are not included in the class ranks, but are eligible to apply for their senior year scholarships. In the event that a student bridges to college while still enrolled at West Canada Valley, only those college classes fulfilling high school graduation requirements will be listed on the student's high school transcript and included in the GPA. So in this day and age, we have kids who bridge, we have kids who leave and go right to Clarkson. We just want clarification because they're taking classes that are not part of our curriculum. There's no way to do apples to apples comparison. We can't have a student who chooses to go to Clarkson, and that's absolutely fine. Accelerate yourself, go to Clarkson, those are all things. But your grades at Clarkson aren't a value equal apples to apples value to what we have here. So we want to make sure that when we talk to them in guidance and when they're making these decisions, they understand there are some sacrifices when you leave West Canada Valley that you're not part of at that point in time. So if you're making that hard decision to bridge to Mohawk Valley Community College and you're taking classes that are not part of our curriculum or courses that are getting credit for West Canada Valley High School, they're college credit, things that aren't part of West Canada, those aren't going to count toward things that are here. So that's all clarifications on that. You'll see some cross-outs along the way on the bottom where we've had the physical education that we want to try to include in our calculations. The homeschooled students, upon a student's return from initial enrollment in the district, when credit is awarded, it shall be on a pass-fail basis and shall not be included in a GPA calculation or counted in determination of class rank. So homeschool has become a hot ticket, especially during COVID. Okay, but there's always been homeschool kids who have left and come back. They get a report card from the people who evaluate the homeschool and their curriculum and all that stuff, and they get grades. But those grades are not going to be calculated. They'll get credit for taking the course because it got evaluated and they passed a certain class or whatever it is. But the fact that the grade says 99 doesn't count as part of their overall GPA. You can't come in with a 100 average out of homeschool and become the valedictorian in West Canada Valley. So that's what that clarifies. To be eligible for valedictorian and salutatory status, a transfer student must have been enrolled and in attendance at West Canada Valley for a minimum of 8 quarters during grades 9 through 12, 3 of which must be quarters 1 through 3 of their senior year. So, this has become, we haven't had this issue, we're being a little proactive here. We have 30-something kids who have transferred into the district this year, okay, 30-something total, with about 13 to 12 that have transferred out. So we're on the positive side this year. Some of them have been homeschooled, some of them have gone to other schools, some of it's this transient population that's happening. So here's the deal with this. We inevitably are not going to, we have to have some value in what we're doing here where we don't have students that move in from other districts that slide into different spots and so forth from other districts without at least attending some sort of minimum time in our district. They can be high honor roll, be an honor graduate, all those kinds of things. But to be the valedictorian salutatorian, we want to set some limitations on that transient piece of it. And I'll give you an example. If someone were to transfer in their senior year for whatever reason from Illinois and their parents got jobs in the district and they finished out their graduation requirements the last 2 quarters at West Canada Valley and they transferred in some average from Champaign, Illinois, yes, we're gonna transfer those grades in, we're gonna transfer those credits in, you're gonna be on the honor roll, you're gonna be an honor graduate if you complete here, we've gotta do all these things. But you're not gonna be eligible to become valedictorian of West Canada Valley or salutatorian of West Canada Valley when you spent your whole life in school in Champaign, Illinois, and you spent 2 quarters at West Canada. So this is what clarifies and sets a minimum so that it's clear. So if it ever does come up with a transfer student and so forth, we have some clear guidelines as to how that would fall in. And anybody who asked about it, we could say, here's the deal. Just so you know, I know your son or daughter is transferring in with this, but you're only going to be here for a short period of time. So you won't be on the list for this. We'll put your grades in. You're going to be on the honor grad list and for all the accomplishments that you had wherever you lived before, but this is how this works. So anyway, that's that policy. That's probably one of the biggest things in that policy. And I, want to give that to you. And did I forget anything with that, Mr. Broadbent? I think we're good with that?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions or initial thoughts on that particular policy or concerns? Okay. So I would look it over, keep it with you. We'll talk about it again next month. I'll bring an update from internally on this, and we'll talk a little bit more about it and see where we want to go with it in September. And again, we can input this at any point in time for the current school year. So, good.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, announcements. The next regular board meeting will be September 12th at 6 p.m. And any public comments? We welcome public comments that are related to the agenda. We ask that you be respectful of time. We ask that you state your name and where you live. Please remember you cannot identify specific staff, student, personnel, or board persons. If you need to address a specific situation, we ask that you contact the superintendent directly. Thank you.
Yeah, so, I'll address that. Yep, let me, if you have that, I'll take that. I did get one. Okay. We did receive one public question that wasn't necessarily on the agenda, but I do want to address it, and I can talk to this person further if they want to call the district office. But there was some concern that we have two different yearbooks, one for the seniors and two in the two for grade 7 through 11. And I think there's some potential clarification on that. We have one yearbook for grade 7 through 12 that we hand out. The seniors did get theirs first, the way the system was set up, and in grades 7 through 11 are going to get theirs on the first day of school. So I'm thinking maybe that's the confusion on that. Just so everybody knows, we have clarified that. Yearbooks will be distributed in June next year. We have to make some adjustments to the calendar of the yearbook, but we've done that. And everybody 7 through 12 will get their yearbooks in June before they leave school next year. So we've had those discussions. But I think the confusion is that some of the seniors got their yearbook and they have a separate yearbook, and the 7 through 11 are getting a different yearbook now that I'm reading this. That's not the case. It's the same yearbook. We just will distribute to the kids that are returning to school on the first day back.
Okay, any other questions?
I do
Just
before
the
we're done.
board thing, was that just a copy of the board meetings?
Yep. So that's just a copy, and what I included on, or Karen included, was that April 19th BOCES, the day we have to vote on the BOCES budget every year. That's on there as well. So, but other than that, it's your regular dates. You've already had them, we've already approved them, but just giving you a copy.
I didn't know if there was a change.
Nope. Smart, I guess.
Yeah, I'm Kelly for the business manager. I'm sure you don't know this off the top of your head, but if you could look it up for me. The in lieu of taxes, the pilot program, we get a check, once a year or something from the county? Is that how we're paid for that?
For the windmills?
I'm talking about Hillside Acres, actually, in
That-
Newport.
That one, I believe, comes through Newport, through the town of Newport.
Okay, could you look that up, see when the last time we got a check?
Newport gets the check and
And see how
they
much it
split
was for?
Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything else?
We have to do the safety.
Oh, did we skip those?
I thought so.
Ooh.
I thought I had it on
Apologize.
board.
Can we skip over it on the agenda?
I think so.
Oh, we did? Oh, I'm sorry. So, the district-wide safety plans, I included that in your packet. We have one more action item to make here. I apologize.
Oh, it's an action
Kinda yeah, we skipped over it on there. So you have a copy of that. These are annual approvals of the district-wide safety plan and the building-wide safety, which is the confidential plan to that. So we have to motion to approve both of those plans in place. I will answer any questions you have about the district-wide safety plan, which will be posted on the website as soon as it's approved by the board. There was a public comment period. I did not receive any public comments on that. It's been posted as a draft. So, is there any questions at all on safety plans? Okay, if not, you're gonna have a motion to approve the district-wide.
Can I have a motion to approve the district-wide safety plans for the school year 2022, 2023? Sarah first. John second, all in favor? And can I have a motion to approve the building-wide, safety? I don't know where you are.
The building wide safety
Building-wide safety plan
for the 22.
for the 22-23 school year. Sarah first, Janine second, all in favor?
Thank you.
Question? Oh, you look like you have a question. Have a motion to adjourn, please? Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor?
Good catch, Karen.
Is it on the list? It is.
But it sounds hard.
I thought I
So
zoned
I
out.
had it as a discussion item.
Oh,
And then